Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. I always do this sound effect. Everyone asks me why I keep doing the sound effect. Guys, what's going on? Joey Grimone, aka Chicago Joey. Today, Poker Life Podcast, we are joined by a man that some of you guys out there might not be familiar with him if you guys are newer poker fans. I know, right? There might not be if they're newer to poker, but this man, I would consider him a legend of the poker world. I've been doing my deep dive and research on the poker world and on the World Poker Tour specifically. And this guy is a guy I came across, and I was like, man, this guy seems like a pretty interesting personality from kind of reading more about him, reading some of the stories, reading the history of how the World Poker Tour was found back in 2002, 2003 era. And this man was around during the beginning of the poker boom, a debatably vital part of that poker boom. And I can already tell this dude's going to have a lot of fucking stories. I'm very excited. He's got a basketball hoop in his office, living my dream. Look at that basketball hoop. I mean, that's amazing. Do you ever break a window, though? I mean, like, that seems like a dangerous place to have a basketball hoop because you got the doors right behind it. But we have World Poker Tour founder Steve Lipscomb in the house. Steve, welcome officially to the podcast, and I'm very happy to have you here, brother. How's it going?
Honored to be here, and we'll make sure we shoot at least one hoop for you. And the good thing is you're so much taller than me, I don't have to try to take you on in person.
That's true, right? It would be like a virtual basketball. I got my small basketball hoop. You have an actual life-size basketball hoop. So if you ever broke a window back there, right? It's like, 'cause it looks like you're like, if someone said, look, you're in a YMCA center, it looks like a nice recreational room there. You got the basketball hoop. You got like a pinball machine in the background looking like there.
Not just
yoga
a pinball machine, the World Poker Tour pinball machine. So I'm a very interactive thing. But yes, you see Mike, you see Vince.
Uh-huh.
And if you look right around the corner, that is me.
Is he on the corner of the building?
Appropriately placed way off screen, right? Yeah, it's like okay, all right, he's the founder.
What are you talking about? You aren't the pretty face of the World Poker Tour? They didn't want to put.
I am the pretty face of the World Poker Tour, but don't tell anybody because that would probably end the entire franchise. This is 18, 19 years in. So
yeah, one thing I know, I mean, the World Poker Tour certainly picks very like energetic, charismatic, great-looking ambassadors for the show. So it seems like you guys had a real good plan from the beginning. I mean, kind of get into it, right? But so first of all, right, you found the World Poker Tour back in 2002, and now it's been going on for, 19, 18 seasons. It's been all over the world in hundreds of different countries around the world. I mean, it's one of the most impressive brands we have in the poker world right now. It's a name I think that most poker players around the world are going to be familiar with too. So what the hell were you thinking back in the day when you decided, hey, I'm going to start a poker series, a poker event, a poker show that doesn't look super seedy. It's not in a back room. It's not like, it was a very nice production. It seemed like you had a vision for a different way that poker could be presented.
Well, yes, that's it. My answers are all going to be one sentence. It's going to be really easy for you. It's just going to be, yeah, that's right.
Is that right?
I got to tell you, it is I feel like the luckiest guy in the world because of all the people who we got to work with and all the people whose energy came together to sort of essentially transform poker into something that you didn't have to sheepishly tell someone you did. Mm-hmm. And at our first final table at Bellagio, 3 of the 6 players had not told their family what they did for a living. Think about that. Right. I mean, you were within 2 years, you were the hit of your family reunion. And so broader vision was pretty simple. It was, let's take this thing that the New York Times said 20 million US citizens were doing on a regular basis, brand it, make it into the NBA of poker, and long-term create a sports franchise. And when the business plan was written in 2001 and Lyle Berman and Lakes Entertainment came in to fund it, the whole idea in that 5-year business plan was we're going to do everything those sports do in order to transform this into an actual sport. And the crazy thing was that it worked. I mean, that's what's nuts. It's nuts. I mean, when you talk to Adam Pliska, who, by the way, said he was watching, so I can't say as many nice things as I otherwise would. But all of the people who have continued to make that into what I would consider to be one of the largest sports franchises in the world out of nothing blows my mind.
Yeah, so your current involvement in the World Poker Tour, are you still Adam? I had Adam on the podcast. I think it was last week now, and he said that he still talks to you pretty regularly. So are you still involved with the World Poker Tour now, or what? How does that work? Because I know it's been sold a couple times and it's gone through different phases of what it actually is.
Oh yeah, I'm still the most important person at the World Poker Tour. I just don't show up or do anything. So other than that, it's still really all about me, baby. No, I one of the great things, and it is, Adam and I were talking just yesterday, because it's one of the great joys in my life is that he and I get a chance to talk about things that have nothing to do with anything but life, the universe, and the song and the dance of life. But one of what I said yesterday was maybe the greatest gift that anyone has given to me is the group of people at the World Poker Tour who have made it so easy for me to get out of the way. Mm-hmm. And that, honestly, I think that's what founders ought to do over time, is you sort of get that thing, it happens, but you really need people who can figure out how to continue to modify. And I ran it for 8 years. And Adam's been there so longer than that. He'll double me before you know it. But you watch the way that people manage to make this into things I never could have imagined it to be. And that's just really exciting. So the answer to your question, I am very lucky that every once in a while they let me come in and expose me to players so that I don't, they give me very specific instructions and even let me talk to you. I think this is very dangerous.
Crazy, right? I mean, are you gonna say something
bad idea?
You're gonna tell some crazy stories from the poker boom? Because I mean, listen, you were like in the middle of when first things happened. So you start World Poker Tour 02, 03 time, and then poker starts going wild through the Moneymaker stuff and through the Poker Star stuff and through Party Poker stuff. So there's like this combination of things taking place in all these different areas of the poker world, and it seemed like you were at the forefront. Was the WPT, was that one of the first shows that used the whole card camera, that lipstick camera? Was that the first show that had something like that being done?
Yeah, so in the US we were, and it's so fun to watch a little piece of history that you get to experience, because you very quickly learn that history has very little relevance to what happens. So the answer, I'll tell you, but what I love is to hear other people's stories about what we call the poker boom, because everyone has their own perspective. Mm-hmm. So I will tell you that probably all of us think we had a bigger impact than we did. I will tell you temporally, it's always sort of turned around in people's minds. And I just find that to be awesome. I mean, all that matters in my mind is we've gotten a chance to experience what we call Camelot. I mean, it really was this thing that went from nothing to everything. And when I wrote the business plan in 2001 for the World Poker Tour, there had never been a poker show in the US that was not paid for by the casino, shot and just given away, that they put at 2:00 in the morning. When we filmed the 1-hour documentary for the Discovery Channel, that was the first time a production company had actually been paid by a network to do that. That's what led me to think poker could be huge. Mm-hmm. And then went out and pitched that prior to 2001 to all the networks who eventually did it, none of who were remotely interested at all. I mean, they thought that was the worst idea in the world. No one will ever watch poker on television. When we filmed our first tournament in 2002 at the Bellagio, it was an interesting time. The World Series of Poker was at Binion's downtown, which was going bankrupt. There was a question whether the World Series would even continue. And we hit air, and there was not a plan at that time when we went on air for the World Series even to be filmed that year. Because we did not make a deal with ESPN and wanted prime time on the Discovery Networks, we took that deal, and ESPN went and made the deal with the World Series.
Wow.
So there's a question whether anybody would have ever seen Chris Moneymaker if the World Poker Tour had not already just knocked ratings out of the park. So at the time, the Travel Channel, where we were, had an average rating of 0.42. That was the average rating they would get. By the end of season 1, we were doing a 1.5, and by season 2, we were doing a 2 to a 2.4. So those numbers blew the doors off. We were the hottest thing, along with Queer Eye with a Straight Guy, in cable television. And all of a sudden, amazing things happened. Party Poker was on the World Poker Tour. Their site went up, according to their folks, 11x when that episode aired. And they became this giant, and still today, an amazing partner for the World Poker Tour. So if you ask everybody, they'll have a different story. All I can tell you is the lightning that was in the bottle had lots of counterparts, and everything helped everything grow.
Right.
So Moneymaker was amazing. ESPN, amazing. World Series of Poker, amazing. World Poker Tour and its global reach with international distribution continues to make all of this into something that is no longer an American phenomenon, which in 2001, I would dare you to go back and do the research and see how few places poker was played anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's, I mean, a lot of interesting things there. And what you just said right there, when I've been studying a lot of what's happening around the world in terms of the poker communities and these new poker stars being born in Brazil and in Japan and in different countries. In India, for example, it's kind of blown up there right now too. And you don't realize that it wasn't quite like that in what, just 20 years ago, right? There really wasn't poker in these places, and these places are kind of maybe like 5-10 years behind America in that maybe we'll see other booms happen in other parts of the world too, which I think is pretty interesting and pretty exciting.
Unbelievably cool, right? And that's not different from anything. I mean, when in the wilds of Indiana, they started playing a thing with a hoop and throwing a ball into it, who'd have imagined that you'd have, the NBA and its phenomenal ability to create content and entertain. And so I feel like that's very much what we were hoping to do, and we've been incredibly fortunate to participate in with everybody. And what I really love about Adam Pliska and the philosophy behind the World Poker Tour, you can't find a better ambassador than Mike Sexton, Vince Van Patten, and now Tony Dunst and Lynn Gilmartin. I mean, those guys look at this as a family and tend to want to include people. I think there's power in that, man. I mean, I just think there's so many things where we're all trying to grapple to say, it's mine, I got it. And, the reason we've been able to all together sort of create what we now call the poker world is, I think, because of inclusion. It's because everybody found a little thing that they said, oh, I could create that piece of it. And that's what makes it function and work.
Do you see that happening in the current poker world, the current way it's constructed right now, or what are kind of your thoughts from what you're seeing right now? I mean, obviously we're in a unique time right now, and things are changing and things are moving more online, including the World Poker Tour Championships, which are on Party Poker now, which that wasn't a thing before the lockdown sort of struck. So what are you kind of seeing right now about what's happening in the poker world?
Well, I'm an old guy, so I'm supposed to hate everything new. So clearly I'm a really bad old guy, because I love all of this. I mean, what I spend my time, I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and I get a chance to spend my life now doing things that I hope make some sort of difference. It's all I do. And through that, Gamers.vote is a thing that we've been working on since 2018, and are doing events all over the country to help register and get gamers to vote as one of the most underserved age groups in being able to have a voice in this amazing democracy and world we get to live in. And so the technology that you're talking about is so friggin' cool. I can't tell you. I mean, as a guy who started out, and this shows you that I actually was born in the Paleolithic era, But when I started making television and film, it was impossible to do the stuff like you and I are doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
You get a chance. When I was selling television shows, the first with my hero, Norman Lear, who created Maude, we had to go and sell to a very small list of networks an idea, a show, a package. And today, the Twitch, who's one of our great partners with Gamers.vote, and Facebook Gaming, another really great platform partner of ours, you and I can go and just do that today. Mm-hmm. That to me is the most exciting and scary thing that the planet may have ever produced. I mean, really, right? We see plenty of fear. It's crazy, but we could just out of nowhere go and create something. And if we can create content people want to watch, then we can get, some of FaZe Clan are partners of ours in Gamers.vote. And you look at the millions of followers that they have for what they do. And you just sort of go, I love that world. I love the democracy of that world. I love the access. So everything you're describing, and of course, Adam and his crew are the experts on all of those things that are happening in poker. But I can tell you that it doesn't do anything but get me up in the morning thinking that possibilities are limitless.
And that's your main project right now that you're working out with the Gamers Vote, trying to get the message out there, educate gamers why they should vote, or get them in the habit of voting, and kind of get them in that whole world of caring about what happens in the world?
We do lots of things. So I will go through my whole list of things that I really try to do, because local, state, national, and international, all of those levels I try to hit to do something that is impactful. Gamers.vote, the whole idea is to activate and have a voice. So the reason that you and I do a lot of the things that we do, we may think that we're just so original and, we got great new ideas, but so much of that comes from, people around us who we admire, people we care about, and what they do and what they model, so that we go, it would be a great thing for me to be a part of having a voice for my generation. Because in 2016, these stats are going to blow your mind. If you were 65 years or older, you had a 71% chance of having voted in the last presidential race. Mm-hmm. If you were ages 18 to 29, it was 46%. So if you wonder why politicians ignore young people, it's because you can be ignored. Mm-hmm. So this is within the group of gamers and gamers broadly defined, poker, people who play poker online are certainly gamers. It's an attempt to find the people you admire, care about, and have them help all of us understand why 1 out of every 3 voters this cycle in 2020, one out of every 3 potential voters is either a millennial or a Gen Z. 1 out of every 3. That means the largest voting bloc in the country. If we'd all wake up and actually do something.
Interesting. So why do you feel so strongly about this issue?
Well, I have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, mm-hmm. And I guess as we look at stuff that we don't like. Mm-hmm. And I never tell people what the stuff is that they don't like, because you can imagine it on your own. What are the 2 things that make you so nuts about the way things work? We actually live in a system where you have a chance to do something about it. And that's novel in human history. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a lot of great democracies around the world, but we're one of them. And so I guess as I've watched my kids develop, I feel like we're all hoping that somebody else will have a better voice than my generation.
Yeah, right.
Because we made a bloody mess out of things.
I think we're seeing that happening with the movements that are going on, and I think people are understanding that they can have an impact on things with Twitter and with Instagram and with TikTok and with YouTube. So now I think people are becoming more empowered to, if they believe in something, which can sometimes be bad because they might believe in something that other people strongly disagree with, and that's how we have so much dissent on these issues, is because, well, you said this, I believe that you should now lose your job. And that could be, and it seems like that's where a lot of things are heading, is that everyone believes what they think should be taking place. And if it's not taking place, the other people against them are potentially the enemies of them. So it's very adversarial right now in the online streets when people, they have these strong opinions, and it devolves into arguing and debating and name calling. So it's going to be fascinating to see how what you're talking about develops, because I think people do realize now that they can have an impact on things.
And you're right. I would say that one thing is that it's been pretty combative for a long time. If you let people actually have a point of view and express it, they disagree. And some people think that's a bad thing. I think it's really what it's all about.
Agreed,
I mean,
yeah.
really, that's what it's all about. And being able to have a way to dialogue. I mean, what you do is really lovely. And I love that you call these conversations, not interviews, because that's part of what I think this generation brings to the table. It is conversation. If what we're doing is setting up hierarchies and deciding how things are structured before we get there, we've already decided what answers are. So in the non-structured world that involves Twitch, that involves YouTube, in the decentralized world that brings Facebook, Instagram, Snap, all of those things into the equation, to me, that gives us a grand opportunity that we either take advantage of or we blow. And, we're entitled to blow it. That's fine too. But it gives a chance for people to find ways to communicate that are healthier, that are not abusive, and yet allow different points of view to duke it out in the marketplace of ideas. That's been going on since we started this crazy experiment called the United States of America, right? I mean, it's again, it excites me. It doesn't discourage me.
Yeah, you sound pretty locked in with the current state of digital media, my friend. Most times people, they start a media company, they maybe get a little older, maybe they lose touch with Snapchat, right? They don't know what these new age programs and technologies and platforms are. It sounds like you're pretty up to date. I mean, you got the young kids though, and it makes sense. You got the young kids, so they're keeping you young. That's got to help out a lot, right?
They grab my phone, and every once in a while they steer me back onto the tracks. and honestly, so gamers.vote, like then 15-year-old, now 17-year-old, and I think have had a really healthy dialogue about what gaming means to his generation. So we had that conversation in a way maybe a lot of parents find it difficult to do, but sort of to figure out where that fits in his life. And that's what came out of this. In other words, this came out of me sort of saying, I don't know, are you spending too much time gaming? And he said, because he's smarter than I am, he said, yeah, Dad, maybe you should learn a little something about this world. And as I did, I just think it's extraordinary. I do. I think it's extraordinary. There are millions of people streaming today on Twitch, YouTube, and other platforms to tens of millions of people all over the world. And that's just a technology gift, man. That to me just, so this came to sort of say, well, let's find people like Joey Joe, or whatever, let's find people like that who care about this let's have a voice thing and amplify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm learning that in poker, especially because, poker was kind of established in some ways in the 2000s, early 2010, Black Friday kind of shook things up a little bit. And now a lot of the voices that we have in poker, they're kind of like bought and paid for in a lot of ways by these companies, and they don't really talk about the issues. And that was always a big issue I had when I started my podcast, was I'd look around at the ambassadors that were before me and I'd say, like, well, why aren't some of these guys like speaking up about these things? Because I see some real issues happening, because I played a lot of high stakes cash and I saw a lot of issues happening in that world specifically, of just things that didn't appear to be going very healthy for the ecosystem. And I would just be like, why don't people speak about these things? I understand now why they don't speak about these things, because it's just way easier just to not get involved. I mean, it's just stay on the sideline, say, fuck it, whatever, I'm going to get paid, I'm making this, it doesn't matter. But so I understand the challenges and hurdles, but at the same time, I think that they are issues that are worth discussing and worth putting out there. So that's what I try to do with some of these things is get the conversation started. Not everyone is always happy because sometimes they're negative things related to poker, but I think there's serious issues to talk about. So yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from with this idea.
Yeah, dude, you're part of this whole new ecosphere, and that's, I just think that's exciting. So you used to, if you wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein, these are names that will mean nothing to your audience, but they're the people who broke the Watergate scandal. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted to be those guys, you had to have a Washington Post that could pay you to go and do that. Today, if you want to go into the poker world and, you know, really have a voice, you get to do that. I love that. I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I think right now what I'm trying to do is find more companies to work together with, because I think for me, I've always been very solo based. I mean, I'm sure you're going to, you know, you have a lot of good insight on a lot of things, I imagine. So I'm very happy to have you on. I can kind of bring some of these up, and very curious to hear your viewpoint on how you viewed growing your own poker-related business as well with WPT. So when I look at collaborations now, I try to find companies that I think are trying to do right by the players, that are good people to work with, that have the same passion, I guess, for poker that I have. And that's really what I've been looking for with people I want to work for. And then WPT, I feel like Rob Young, those are two companies that do have that same passion. And a few other companies in poker have that same passion too. But then I see others that maybe they don't treat it that way. They treat it more as just like a real cutthroat kind of business where they don't necessarily care about the players very much, or they don't seem to respect the players very much as well too. So when you're thinking about collaborating, what's sort of your viewpoint on who you personally choose to maybe collaborate with?
You know, first of all, I'm shocked. You mean there are people who aren't perfect in the poker world?
Yeah, it's true.
This is absolutely shocking to me. You know, I always think of it on two levels. And again, I get to have dialogue with the Adam Pliskas of the world. So I think we share this sort of thing. So my bias for the World Poker Tour is that we've tried since the start to make this a enterprise that was about the people, that was about encouraging people and partnering with people. And so when you say, what are the partners you look for? You know, there are two. One of them's personal. So I say two pillars. The first pillar for me is life's too short to work with assholes. I mean, it's just too short. And so there have been times that we could have made some great deals, but God, you know, life is just not worth it. So I think keeping our own universe in such a way that we work with the people that we can love, mm-hmm. and we love the people we work with. That's been something that has really transformed sort of the way I think I look at business generally, because it's sort of a bright line rule for me. If we can't do that, if I don't have people that I'm in business with who are willing to say we will pass up the good deal in order to keep ourselves and our people healthy, then I will work with those people. So that's the personal side of it. And then I think, you know, as far as what you look for in partners, I would say it so often it has to do with making deals and in a deal making process. So when you're trying to make a deal, and I think of when we sold the World Poker Tour to Party Gaming, to Party Poker, Adam Pliska and I flew out to Gibraltar, where they were based, and showed up with a deal already written, showed up on Friday, and the CEO at the time said, well, guys, what do you think? Are we all? And everybody said, well, we're pretty much done. I don't even think we'll have to work through the weekend. And of course, 10 days later, we were still in Gibraltar. But we stayed there and found a way to work through all of the issues that came up, understanding that deals are made and deals are not made. So I think you learn a lot by what your partners are going to be as you start to associate with them. So I think you look for people who aren't trying to make a deal that's so good for them that you can't make money. And we did that a couple of times where we were the big dog. And so we made bad deals for the other people, and all of those deals went away. So you have to make something that works for both sides, and really try to find companies that agree with the philosophy. And it's interesting that you said both the companies that you said, the World Poker Tour and Party Poker, who have been associated, across so many years together. I think probably there's pretty similar philosophies, the way they look at the poker world.
Yeah, you sold them back, was like 2008, 2009. What was that year when that happened?
I think it was 2009.
2009. So when you're going through that, right? So you come up with the idea in 01. Obviously starts going off 02, 03, right? 03 starts up, boom. You have that first time there, that 6-7 years. The issues happen with the law, the UIGA party pulls out. I think that's what happened right around 2008. So why do you decide to sell the company right then? What was the inspiration, or what was the idea behind doing that?
Well, I mean, there were a number of reasons. First of all, if you think of a cat having 9 lives, the World Poker Tour has at least 11. And, that's rare. So I would say if you imagine that we started this business as a classic sports model, planning to make most of our revenue from television. And within a couple of years, we were making 8 figures. Wow. In television licensing fees. But the market changed super fast when online sites started giving away television. Kind of hard to convince someone to pay you over $10 million a year to make something that other people are giving away. And then the online site, so we became more of a sponsor model. And then all of a sudden UIGEA happens, and the world gets cut out from under that. And so if you look at the model today, and I think Adam will articulate it and did articulate it much better than I will, but evolving into these new technologies, the really lovely thing, similar to what the NBA, the NFL, and the Major League Soccer, MLS, what those things are all about is being a brand and evolving with technology, evolving with everything else. So I think that your question was about selling, and I am getting back to that. But the broader sort of picture to me is the amazement that we can look 18 to 19 seasons later and sort of marvel at the fact that while all of those disruptions were taking place, the strength of a brand that we created and associated, and because we care about customers, we care about people who work with us, we care about people who work for us. All of those things allowed that to translate long term. 2008, 2009 was fascinating, as you all, I'm sure, remember, for all kinds of economic reasons, right? I mean, that was right when the Great Recession happened. So when we were more reliant on things like sponsorship, and yet companies were still making a lot of revenue in the online gaming space, it simply does what markets do. If you can, as a Gibraltar company based with a strong, this is Party Gaming I'm talking about, if you can make more revenue with the World Poker Tour than the World Poker Tour can by associating with you, naturally mergers and acquisitions happen. So I would just say timing turned out to be really perfectly fortuitous. And I think it worked very well for Party Gaming. And then our game, who bought it from Party Gaming, has benefited tremendously by having that association. And again, I don't want to, he's listening, Adam, so you got to close your ears right now. But Adam Pliska is one of those people, thank heavens he doesn't have my disposition. I mean, I can be funny and gregarious, but I can also really get pissed off if you don't follow through with some of the things that you said you were going to. Adam Pliska can work with anyone, and does. In other words, he will hold the line, but somehow I'm the person that you would say, well, I'm just not going to do business with you. And he walked this company through many of those things that today allow it to still be this big global brand. So And I should say he and his team, because there's just so many remarkable people that have been assembled to be a part of that. But it is good thing that I am not there, because I think I'm a little more surly, as it were.
Surly.
Surly.
So what is that? How would that come up in real life? What would be an example of a time you've had to be surly?
Oh, well, not. It's just how I am. I mean, if someone essentially has promised they're going to come through in a particular way and they don't, I will walk. Adam will find a way to walk with them and make the thing continue to work. But that's probably why I'm good at starting stuff. So do that, disrupt, and find a way to go and do something else.
Yeah, so what do you see happening with the future of these kind of sporting events, right? Like a WPT, or even we're seeing a lot more of the other sports, UFC and NBA are very much embracing the social media model, their social media marketing. They're putting up a ton of different content out there, and they're coming up with some real good ideas for how they're trying to grow their brands with the platforms that are currently available, in addition to the television itself. So where do you because it seems like poker to me has a lot of room to improve on those different areas, and the same marketing strategies being used in poker are very much behind the same strategies that are being used in these other sort of mainstream sports.
Yeah. I think you nailed it, right? I don't think anybody in the world does it better than the NBA. And again, the commissioner is a law school buddy of mine. So I do get a chance to sort of watch them closer than I do others. But I mean, nobody does it better, because they have for years now had foresight to look ahead. So they're, yes, COVID-19 has transformed the world so that we're trying to figure out what tomorrow looks like. Mm-hmm. But the smart folks in the NBA, the smart folks in poker have for a long time been evolving these strategies. So when you talk to Adam Plisco about the World Poker Tour, it is not as if all of a sudden in March, April, they went, oh my gosh, we have to change our business. They've evolved with the technology and the market so that they're kind of already there. But what's interesting, maybe for you and me, as we're, observers of the planet and the way markets work, is that this kind of shoves some things. It's an accelerant, right? It's sort of, the flame's already burning, but somebody just poured some fuel on it. Mm-hmm. Because I think that I always tell my kids that the two biggest forces in the universe are momentum and inertia. And so what so often keeps something from progressing or going in the direction it's eventually going to go is it's just been done this way for so long. Mm-hmm. And so I think what you're seeing and what we're going to see in all markets, but poker has got to be one of them, is just some of that stuff's going to go a little faster. There are going to be people who realize I was doing these 4 things that I can't do right now, and I don't miss them. So I think that's going to be what will be fascinating in the next 18 months to 2 years, is sort of how much of the stuff doesn't come back.
Right.
Because we just sort of always thought we had to have that thing doing that thing, and we don't need that thing doing that thing anymore. How's that for articulate? All that education paid off, Mom.
All that law school, huh?
Is that thing doing that thing, Mom?
Were you practicing articulation at? Did you get that? And were you always good at articulating your thoughts, or was that something you got up in college?
I think the other way to say it is that I never was able to shut up. So yeah,
that makes sense.
No, I was fortunate to have amazing education. So my undergrad, I was at Dartmouth, and law school, I was at University of Chicago Law School, which may be the best law school in the country. It's an extraordinary place, mm-hmm. and have people of all different points of view. So the mental gymnastics that I got to experience there were very helpful as the rest of this stuff has progressed.
So were you having a lot of conversations at school with people that didn't necessarily see things your way, and you were passionately sort of defending your stance and also learning at the same time when other people were giving you pushback and saying, hey, I mean, you're kind of an idiot and here's why you're an idiot. And you're like, no, I mean, you're an idiot, you know, right?
It's the dialogue. It's the dialogue you and I are having right now. Not that we agree or disagree about something, but it's extraordinary if you have the ability to listen. Mm-hmm. And that's hard sometimes. But if you have the ability to listen, there's something to learn from anybody.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's fun about the podcast and why I love doing it is that I can always take something away from someone no matter what they do, what they're good at poker, not good at poker. If they're in poker, outside of poker, I like asking questions, figure out what people are good at, and just be able to pick up something from them, right? Try to kind of advance the thought process, or maybe it solidifies some things that you maybe already thought already too. So it's pretty fun. Yeah. Do you do a lot of podcasts? Do you do a lot of interviews? It's clearly you said you like talking, right? Are you kind of doing any of these things at all?
That's no. And I really enjoy, this is lovely and rare because I seldom do it, but would certainly do it for the World Poker Tour. I really enjoy at this point. I mean, back in the day, back when the World Poker Tour started, everything from, the Wall Street Journal to Inc. magazine, and it was really exciting. And that was lovely. And I get to sort of watch that baby continue to flourish. Gamers.vote, a wonderful power in the gaming industry. Christy St. Martin joined us to run that and has brought entire team in. And I'll be honest, I believe in endemic as an interloper. And I am a total interloper in the poker world. So I'm a guy who made a 1-hour documentary that was on the Discovery Channel. It doubled its audience in an hour with no promotion. And I thought, wow, poker's the next big thing. And I'm such a, knucklehead that I won't take no for an answer. And when everybody said no, wrote a business plan and went to a great guy with Mike Sexton, went to Lyle Berman and Linda Johnson, essentially helped us usher in this whole sort of thing. But I enjoy being in the back seat. I'm chairman of the board of Gamers.vote, but it really should be gamers who are making that stuff happen. So I get to enjoy watching them do great things.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So you think that you like to be more behind the scenes as you got older, or is that something that you first had? You already had that experience in front, and now you say, oh, it's I don't necessarily need that to feel validated or to feel maybe what I used to need that for when I was younger?
That's just a really great question. You should do this for a living. I mean, it's a really good sort of personal question. I don't know that I know the answer. I will tell you that I don't crave it much anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly why, except maybe that I just get the benefit that you get having kids. So my kids are 17 and 19. And in the same sort of way that watching them sort of blossom and be who they are feels like really the greatest gift to me, right? When I hear them sit at the dinner table and have a much smarter idea than I'll ever have. I just well up with pride. Well, I feel exactly the same way about the World Poker Tour. And so, when it and Adam and his team are doing things that I go, well, I wouldn't have thought of that. It's the same sort of pride. So maybe that's why I don't find myself sort of going out. I really enjoy watching them being able to flourish and enjoy. And I also feel like I really have a desire to give back. I mean, I'm the luckiest, happiest guy I know. And so if I can do something, I feel like it's what Kant would call a moral imperative. I feel like it is my responsibility now to try to make it work better, to try and make people's lives a little better. And it's a gift that I get to be able to do that. But I feel like that's the rest of the time that I'm lucky enough to be on the planet.
Hmm. And you don't feel like when you were creating poker-related content that you were giving back? Because I think a lot of people out there found a lot of entertainment and joy and inspiration from that content you created too. So I would say that was giving back, but maybe in a different way when you look at it like that. If you're comparing it to maybe the impact on the world versus impact poker, I can understand why some people would say, well, what was I giving back through the poker content that I was creating?
Well, I would certainly say that you just don't get to do that very often, right? If you've ever watched the YouTube videos of the guys who drag themselves out to the middle of the ocean to catch the monster wave, you just don't get to do that very often. Maybe that's part of it too, is that I just feel like we caught one that nobody gets to catch and feel so blessed with the people that we got to share it with. You know, when Robin Motor, Audrey Kana, Adam Pliska, Mike Sexton, Vince Van Patten, Shauna Hyatt. I mean, these people just sort of were on this wave, man. And so I don't expect to catch another one. Maybe that's part of it. And I do feel like it's pretty amazing to take a market that didn't exist. And poker obviously existed, but they were closing poker rooms all across the country because they didn't make as much money as one-armed bandits. So when this sort of transformed that world,
one-armed bandits.
Yeah, that's what they used to be. They were one-armed bandits.
True.
But when this sort of made it so every casino needed a poker room in order to get a younger audience, and it was the hot thing that now carried, into the entire globe. Yeah, the answer is that's wonderful and does really good things. People feed their families. All of that stuff I feel like is important. I guess it's a different thing.
Right.
I think it's sort of I feel like I'm overblessed. And so if I can spend some time trying to do something that is meaningful with that, I could start another business. I don't know that I really will. But that stuff maybe purely personal. Maybe that I get more fulfillment personally out of that. So maybe that's why I do it.
Yeah, it makes sense. That make more sense. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to get more fulfillment out of. People think about poker, gambling. They sometimes don't see the fulfillment in there, right? I mean, they see it as more of like an escape thing that they're trying to escape from the world, whereas maybe helping out with some of these other issues, you make it feel like you're actually impacting the world for better and inspiring more positive change for humanity as a whole versus maybe creating an escape for people too. So could be some sort of idea of that. I mean, I think about this stuff all the time. So
I guess I don't think I think of it that way. I think of them as different things and maybe different chapters, in my life. So in a lot of wonderful cultures, they have traditions that include things like changing what you wear. If you reach a certain age, you literally get rid of your entire wardrobe and you take on a new wardrobe that signifies that you're in a different stage of your life. And I would say that, in other words, I would never denigrate not just the poker world, but the World Poker Tour and all of that. That experience to me is out of this world and nothing will ever certainly compare to it. In this, I've changed my clothes and I'm in a different chapter of my life. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what it is that this should be. And so that was the decision that I came to, right or wrong. We all decide.
How old were you when you started the World Poker Tour? Were you, let me think, you're 30,
well, let's
30,
see.
36, 34, 35?
And late 30s.
Late 30s?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I look at that and I go, man, this dude, I could not believe it, right? Because there wasn't Twitch, there wasn't YouTube. Like you said, you had to go around with these plan and convince people to do something that really never been done before. Like, I have this vision. I want to make it glorious. I want to make a great set. I want to character development. I want to hire these great characters and for ambassadors. And I think about that now, trying to do something like that now, now it would seem like it'd be so much easier. And I go, man, this fucking guy did this back in 2002. Like, what is this guy thinking, man? He wasn't even really a poker player kind of guy, but he just saw this vision and it's kind of like visions, kind of a vision I've been sort of thinking more about myself. So I find it real crazy that you came to this idea back then when no sign was there. It wasn't like, but there was a sign. You did see the sign. 20 million people, you said, were playing this game. So you were like, and that's what I see now. I see people interested in poker still. It hasn't died. The interest in poker isn't going away, but a lot of people see it that way. But I see it due to regulation and due to the content being created and the people at the companies that are in charge of promoting the game maybe have lost that love for it because they were involved in the poker boom era. So I see a lot of other reasons why I think that things have maybe died down a little bit, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be that way. And it seems like you were saying that back then. It doesn't need to be this way. It could be this way, and I'm gonna try to make it happen here.
I think you nailed it again. I mean, honestly, we fix on stuff, right? We're humans. I love us. We're flawed. We're weird. We're beautiful. We're brilliant. We're, idiotic. We're violent. We're all that stuff. We are this, incredible clay that we can mold into all kinds of stuff. And we fix on things like Poker Boom. And if you did an analysis, which you'd have to get Adam to actually give you numbers, but if you did an analysis of the entire time that people called it the Poker Boom and compared how many people are playing poker on a regular basis around the world, current stats dwarf the old stats. I mean, dwarf them. They're not even in the same category. So what you have tapped into in your mind is exactly where it is. There's this broad thing that, like every sport, like every avocation, everything goes up and down and everything happens in cycles, but the sine wave is there. What we sort of dreamed of when this business plan said we're going to transform poker into a televised mainstream sports sensation. When those words were the things that we pitched to people who thought that was the craziest idea ever, it took visionaries like Lyle Berman. It took a guy who got it, who said, yeah, we're going to actually put money behind. There's so many great stories. I mean, I have to tell you one of them.
I definitely want to get into a few. I got some good potential story points here. I'm gonna be
all right. So just remind me to tell you about the best meeting I ever missed.
Well, tell me about the best meeting. Now I want to know about the best meeting though.
All right. So Lyle Berman, guy that I met because I interviewed him in the 1 hour documentary on the Discovery Channel.
Is that available? Donnie Peters in the chat. Big shout out to Donnie with WPT says, is this documentary available somewhere for viewing?
Yeah, it was called On the Inside of the World Series of Poker. And again, it was the first time somebody had paid for it. So the Discovery Network paid my junior high school buddy, Mark Hickman, to do this. And he called me out of nowhere and said, do you play poker? And because of my nickel dime quarter game, I said yes. Having never heard of Texas Hold'em, like most people who were playing poker in their silly games at home. Anyway, but having met Lyle then, Linda Johnson and Mike Sexton reconnected us when I said, who do you think should fund this thing? And went and sat down with Lyle and said, hey, want to pitch this to you. And then he said, well, I'm going to look at it and then I'm going to give you a call. He gave me a call and said, great, we got a meeting tomorrow night. And at the meeting is going to be Doyle Brunson, Chip Reese, Jack Binion, and me. And if you can convince them like you've convinced me, then we're gonna fund what you do. I get this message. I go, that's awesome, great. I call him back right away, and I say, oh hey Lyle, it's Steve. I'll be there for sure. Hop on a plane. And he said, the meeting was last night. And I said, some weird thing had happened and my cell phone had not delivered the message until a day later. And if that had happened, and Lyle did have a discussion with them, but he always says, if you'd been there, I bet we would have carried the day. But one of the greatest things I think that happened to the World Poker Tour was that we then wound up under Lyle's company, Lakes Entertainment, with all the infrastructure of a public company. That allowed us the runway to sort of do what we were going to do. So it was, again, a visionary like Lyle who would say, yeah, we're just going to do this. That's hard to find. And then you needed Mike Sexton. And it's interesting right now because of the Champions Cup. It's so lovely that it will bear his name because, as I just said, from the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of the beginning, Mike was there pushing and trying to make this thing happen. And the first time I ever heard him do commentary about poker, he was the voice of poker in my mind. He just was.
Yeah, he's got a very classic voice. I mean, his voice is one of the most iconic voices in poker of all time.
And then, it's inclusive enough to allow Vince Van Patten. And I think, if you can work in Hollywood with anybody for more than a year and still like them, you're doing really well. I can just tell you that Mike Sexton, Vince Van Patten, and everybody at the World Poker Tour, but me personally, I love those guys. Mm-hmm. And Vinny gets, maybe a 10th of the love that he ought to get for understanding how important, particularly in the early days, it was to have someone, not just a poker voice, but somebody who was able to translate it to everybody from grandma to somebody who'd never seen the game, because that's what I think helped transform and create a big thing.
So all these nicknames, right? Was this like, are you guys like in meetings for hours coming up with nickname like the car driver, the truck man, the garbage? Like what'd you call Gus Hansen, like the garbage man or something like that? Because he's always playing a bunch of trash hands. Like where did this? Because I really haven't seen this anywhere else in a lot of things. Like you guys are just on the ball with this writing. I don't know who came up with these lines, but never seen anything like it in poker.
Well, it hadn't been, but here's as the interloper. So not trying to pretend that I'm a poker guy, right? I always believed, and we always marched forward with, if we could create something that we non-poker players would watch, we would win. And so the way that I would describe this to every producer who would start to work for us, I would say, if you think you're about ready to start producing a poker show, you will last a week or two and we'll fire you. And I'll be in that meeting because I'm a nice guy to let you go. And I'll remind you of this conversation. I said, but if you think, like deluded I do, that you're producing a 5-act Shakespearean play where only one character survives, then we're talking the same language. And that involved having every one of the 6 players sitting at the table. They had to be somebody we loved or we hated. And the example that's still always my favorite is a guy at the Reno season 1. The Reno Hilton was a partner at the time, and he was a dentist. And the dentist is probably the least dynamic personality that has ever hit a television screen in the entire history of the planet. And he essentially did what sometimes poker players do. He just sat there. And we're sitting in ADR, which is when we're going back and sort of redoing the commentary afterward. And we're stuck until all of a sudden Vincent comes up with the idea of making the drill sound. And so every time we're looking at the dentist, we're talking about, do you think he's imagining actually drilling that guy's tooth? And all of a sudden, the dentist was a character, and it was part of the show. So the answer is very, very true that we were making personalities grow, thrive. And the one that I still have to apologize for is that we called our then board member, Bradley Berman, Lyle Berman's son. We said he looked like Grant. I mean, he did. He had a full beard. He looked like the old general. But
so when you think about how poker is now, where it's more of a GTO kind of based, where people are obsessed about constantly talking strategy in their when they talk about poker, and there's less character development, it's more focused on the game itself, and some of the characters that play are generally the same archetype of that 20s to 30s male who may be a little bit more quiet, introverted. How do you go upon it? Like when I think about that, like where are you pulling from the interesting stories, right? Tidbits of their lives, or giving them nicknames, like how because that's what it seems like a lot of people have issue with is marketing the new way that poker is developed.
Well, the beautiful thing is it's not my problem.
True.
I mean, Adam and the producers at the World Poker Tour, I just think have done a great job at finding a way to make this completely help drive the narrative. Not different from what the NBA does. Their games do not look the same. Their content does not look the same. The World Poker Tour in social media and the things that they do. It was very funny that you made fun of Adam for having his shirt off a lot. He is the Matthew McConaughey of poker.
I was underselling how much to do a shirt. I was going to his Instagram page. I like, first of all, two things I noticed, right? One, the guy's got his shirt off a lot, right?
You worked hard, man. You worked hard,
man. I mean, he loves his shirt off. And two, he loves taking photos of beautiful ladies. I'm like, man, this guy's always surrounded by beautiful ladies with his shirt off. I go,
and generally,
ain't about a bad way to be.
It hasn't worked well at all for Matthew McConaughey. So how can it work for the World Poker Tour, right? Anyway, I think that they've done a great job sort of translating, transforming, and it's just not the same thing as what we created in those old shows. So if you were trying to create a 5-act Shakespearean play, you would probably have the same audience that your community theater does in the 50 seats that have 12 people in it. So I think those were really the way that the content got launched, and people started thinking, oh my gosh, there are such fascinating people who are, and we used to essentially say, we're giving you information that the person who's about ready to go over the waterfall in the canoe doesn't have. You get to watch while somebody on the edge of your seat, knowing that they've got nothing and they're about to have their aces snapped or whatever. And that was a formula that really worked.
Interesting. Yeah, it's been interesting to see how things develop with with kind of what's happening now with Poker World. Twitch is taking over. I mean, Twitch, everyone's starting a Twitch stream. It's so easy. You get a webcam, you put up a light. Maybe you don't put up a light. You get a microphone. Maybe get your iPhone headphones. You can kind of do it however you want to do it and start loading up and playing that way. So I feel like a lot of the media is developing quite differently, and it's going to be interesting, right? I mean, I think we see with Poker Go, they're using a licensing strategy too, where they're trying to acquire all this content to license out to these companies, and that's how they want to make money. Maybe inspired by World Poker Tour, with how the World Poker Tour did things. I would imagine when you said that, I go, oh, that makes sense what Poker Go's doing. So, and I guess, but the question is, right, if there's all this free content all the time, are people really willing to pay money for poker content when they have the poker content they're paying for has to be like really astronomically, it has to just really stand out from the crowd and has to be marketed well for people to be willing to kind of fork over that cash to pay for something that they can go find on Twitch and on YouTube.
Well, I think they are exciting and different, if that makes any sense. In other words, I don't after the World Poker Tour began, by season 2 or 3, there were 12 to 14 knockoff shows, depending on how you define a show. And the only shows that sort of remain are the World Series and the World Poker Tour in the television. And others come and go, but there's sort of I think will always sort of be a place for the big brands. But it doesn't mean that there's not now beautiful spaces for people to create content that's different and grows. And that's all really great. But in my mind, I wouldn't be going, oh my gosh, the World Poker Tour has no future. But I would be saying that it's really lovely that people can go onto Twitch. I'm just a huge fan of Twitch. Kevin Lynn, the co-founder, is one of our big partners at gamers.vote, and watching what they created is really, I think, pretty exciting. So
crazy, huh?
I would just say that the brands like World Poker Tour will be in those spaces along with those creators, and that just makes the world larger.
Yeah, it sounds like, you mentioned Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA. You said he went to law school with him, right?
Same class, indeed. And he is, I've gone to a lot of the All-Star games. He's just an incredible guy. He's one of those people, and I think about that world. I think about what's happening with live sports in arenas with, 20,000+ people as they try to navigate something that I certainly haven't seen in my lifetime, trying to figure out how that works. I think he's the right kind of person to be there. He's going to make the right decision, seems to always do that. I never seem to make always the right decision, but he does. So I'll be curious how the next year or so pans out for sports generally.
Yeah, me too, right? I mean, I think my take on kind of, because I've been really studying sports and marketing specifically in each sport and how they go upon doing things, and I think right now the UFC is the one I look at the most, and I say this is a company that, like, they have that vision, they have that leader who wants to make this the biggest sporting thing in the world. And I would imagine over time we're going to see the UFC, if there isn't some sort of like deadly injuries or people are dying or they're getting CTE, and maybe that may kick it back a little bit. But it seems like they have one of the best strategies for growing their business and growing their personalities and creating content at scale that I look at as sort of like inspiration for what I look at. And then NBA, of course, I mean, they've really embraced the digital age, and they've embraced letting influencers and creators use content and talk about what's happening. And they've made, it seems like those two companies specifically have really embraced what's happening now, whereas some other ones, NFL, MLB, have been a little bit farther behind. And then that shows in terms of the interest. NFL is still going to be one of the more popular ones because it's in generations of family passed down. But I find I love watching sports in general, and I've been watching sports, playing sports all my life. So NBA specifically, it's always one of my favorite leagues. But now UFC. You watch UFC at all? You big fighter? I see the mats. Are you rolling jiu-jitsu down there? Are you letting your kids tap you out down there?
I'm over there fighting my inner demons only. That's where the 17-year-old does his workout.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You're just there. Yeah. You're there taking it in, meditating, getting mindful about it, trying to answer tough questions.
I don't know that the UFC is necessarily my thing. Mm-hmm. And that's perfectly fine. NBA definitely is. What I love about what you're talking about with that company, though, is there was a whole period of time where people were sort of wondering how it would survive or if it would survive. And so in that sort of cycle of things, it's about trying to make it through the dips. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. They've done a pretty extraordinary job at managing to continue on and sort of reinvent and find the way. It may be more tailored. Sometimes it's just serendipity. I think of sports like baseball, and it was just so lovely when we were all trying to figure out how to fill our time to have events that would take your entire afternoon. Mm-hmm. And, that's kind of not the world now. So I think for sports like that, they're sort of having to have a much bigger sort of reinvention piece. Anyway, it'll be fascinating to watch.
Oh, yeah. I agree, man. Let's get talk about some stories, right? I got some names here. I'm curious if you have any stories related to these names. So,
bastards, I hate them all. Oh, God, I said I would be nice. All right, okay. All right.
They're not gonna let you come on. They're gonna let you do no more conversations here. Okay, World Series of Poker, right? So I put on Twitter, and somebody asked a question. They said, "Were you close to buying the World Series of Poker at any point in time?"
Oh my gosh! All right, I love this story. We'll see what kind of trouble it gets me into. No, it won't. So yeah, when the World Poker Tour became a thing, the World Series was very distressed, and the asking price for the World Series of Poker was around $7 million, or that's what, maybe 7.5. And we were pretty sure we could buy it for $5 million. So I asked Lyle, who was chairman of our board and essentially our funder through Lakes Entertainment, and MGM. So Bobby Baldwin, Lyle, and I sat down in a room to discuss this because it would consolidate everything under the World Poker Tour, but we had just started. So there's no way we had the money. The question was, can we find the money to buy the World Series of Poker? And all right. So I said the $7.5 million is the asking price. We think we can get it for $5 million. And Bobby Baldwin said it's not worth $2 million. And at the time where Binion's Downtown was heading into receivership and all that sort of stuff, that certainly is not what the world bore out, but it was how the meeting went down. So we did not acquire the World Series. And because I told a embarrassing moment for Bobby Baldwin, I need to tell my embarrassing moment that was a follow-up. Gary Oldman was the CEO of Harrah's at the time that wound up acquiring that property and the World Series. And when we sat down, is it Oldman? No, Gary Oldman's an actor.
I think he's an actor, right? Yeah, I think. Gary Oldman's an actor. Yeah, I was like, pretty sure he's an actor too.
Yeah,
maybe he does both.
Yeah, he's a very talented actor. Or I met with this actor guy, and he said he was the head of Harrah's. Regardless, doesn't matter. The guy who was ahead of Harrah's at the time, and I had breakfast. When I gave him my friendly advice, I said, you really have to leave the World Series in downtown Binions because it's got so much history that it might not survive moving. And clearly I was totally right on that.
You were spot on about that, right? They moved.
Smack on. That's right.
They moved. So maybe when we're all saying they should maybe move away from the Rio, maybe they should keep it at the Rio for another 25 years, and we just have the World Series poker for the next 25 years at the Rio.
I clearly have no ability to guess these things. I have shown my lack of acumen, so I will rest in my case.
Okay, so let's talk about some players, because obviously you've had a lot of iconic players in the poker world come through the World Poker Tour. They've got their start in the World Poker Tour. There's some legendary hands, legendary moments that have taken place. What about a guy like a Phil Ivey? You got any Phil Ivey? Any stories about a Phil Ivey? People love these kind of Phil Ivey stories. He's kind of a poker enigma.
Every time we sat back in the production booth while Phil Ivey was playing an ace queen at a World Poker Tour final table, we cried. I mean, that's the story. He just kept losing with ace queen. So he'd make it to our final table, and he'd make it to our final table, and he just kept going out with ace queen. So that's what I remember.
So you remember about him? What about Gus Hansen?
Oh, Gus was so much fun. We talked about his first. So at the final table, as Mike Sexton would say, he was the one person nobody knew. He shows up at the first final table going, who God's name is that guy? And he played at such a different level. And I shouldn't say that because we know there's a lot of luck involved in poker. But, I mean, the guy was sort of playing patterns. That's the way I would always describe it. People would say, who's your favorite person to watch play poker? And I would always say Gus Hansen or Hoyt Corkins. And the reason that I would always say Gus is because I felt like he was playing patterns in the game. I mean, he sort of came from a different game background. Mm-hmm. And it didn't seem like he was just playing his cards or he was just reading people. There was some other thing going on, which whether it's true or not was fun to watch. Mm-hmm. So he was great. And Hoyt, I always used to love watching him play because nobody went all in more often than he did. He was just at the table going, yeah, I'm all in. Yeah, I'm all in again. I'm all in again. And people were just going nuts watching him play.
Well, that's how you had the nickname All In. That was his nickname, right? You could just call him All In Hoyt Corkins or something like that. Right?
Oh, was it? I don't remember.
I think so. Do you have any? Is there any memorable nicknames that stand out that maybe they gave and that Sexton and Vincent Van Patten kind of gave to players that are very memorable? I mean, you mentioned the dentist and the dentist sound.
Sure, of course. Let's see. What is her first name? No Mercy, Mercier, mm-hmm. Who was playing at we had called it Ladies' Night, was I thought one of the greatest that Mike came up with. I don't know, nicknames. Good Lord. I mean, there's so many. I don't know.
What about Daniel Negreanu, Kid Poker? He's still kicking it right now. 2020, he's still a pretty focal part of our poker world out there. I know he's been on World Poker Tour plenty of times now.
I always have enjoyed Daniel a lot. It's kind of the part of what the paradigm was that we were working on was to make the kind of people that you could have be a representative of a community. And he's done that. Sometimes he's liked us, sometimes he's not liked us. And that's kind of what you would hope for a voice of somebody who's being authentic and genuine. So I've enjoyed his stuff. It's fun as time goes on to still be called the kid. Are you still the kid when you're 90? We'll see.
Is he still considered Kid Poker? I don't know. What are we calling him these days? Cocaine
I don't
Dan.
know. I get to be blissfully ignorant.
That's true. Do you still pay attention to much poker content out there right now?
I don't.
No.
No, I really don't. The stuff that I'm involved in, the gamers.vote stuff, is where I really spend my energy and efforts. And part of that comes from when you leave something you're so close to. I force myself to take a break.
Yeah.
So whereas I used to watch and give notes, and in the first 3 seasons direct every episode of the World Poker Tour.
Wow.
When you watch it, you can't watch it the same way. I can't watch a poker show the way that someone else could with just the pure enjoyment. I just can't.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I couldn't imagine like building up an event series, right, and then selling it and being like, all right, I'm gonna go watch the event series from over here now. You know what I mean? Like, that concept seems real. I was thinking about that last night. I was like, man, how does this? So how do you sell? You create this, right? You sell it, and then you just say, like, what do you do then? I mean, because you're relying on these other people that you put your faith into, or you have in charge of the company now, and then you sell it to a different company that you maybe didn't work with, and you don't even know the people there, and maybe they're gonna tear the company down, and I don't know. That seems like a terrifying thought when I think about it right now. And did you ever go through that feeling too, where you're like, oh, this is like, I can't sell. Like, did that ever happen?
No, I think some people do, but no, not at all. And in fact, it felt like just kind of the right time, and specifically made the decision not to continue and run or anything of that sort, which is good. And again, it's I got to watch David Stern see Adam Silver take the NBA over. And in the same sort of way that I'm fortunate that I've gotten to see Adam sort of build his team such that I just feel like it's better in those hands anyway. Yeah. And it allows me to do, other stuff in my life and applaud and appreciate the poker world, but, not get in its way if I can help myself not get in its way.
Well, when you're working on things now and you seem very high energy, so what do you do to recharge your energy? So if you ever get to a point where you're maybe low energy or you're not feeling like maybe doing something that day, do you have any sort of like tricks or anything like that you can maybe that you do? You go to your place, I mean, you got your room there, maybe go shoot some hoops for a little bit, or you play some of the pinball machine, or you go outside and see nature?
All of that. Yeah. I think I'm certainly have more balance than I used to in my life. I don't know how you start something and drink from a fire hose like the World Poker Tour and have balance. So my wife of many, many years is kind that she has put up with me. But the answer is yes. I find ways to recharge. I enjoy playing tennis now. That's probably the thing that I do more. And I hike and run and get out and make sure that I do that all the time. So I'm very active. And again, for me, everybody's different. For me, I feel a need to kind of create and participate. So gamers.vote is a way that, I get a chance to do some of that. And it's something that appears to be growing at a really fast rate because of the amazing people who are helping run it now. Mm-hmm. And so as that grows, that's fun. It's fun to seed something else. And whenever I feel a moment that is quiet enough I seem to start another thing.
Interesting. So you don't stay quiet too long. You always try to find something to kind of get involved with, which makes sense, right? I mean, it seems a little more fun to be involved with things than just kind of be not involved in things. I don't know. I think about this stuff a lot too. So
I love to create.
mm-hmm.
And, and I also, those years in the World Poker Tour, the early years were really busy. So I have really enjoyed the last number of years being able to have a lot of time with my kids too. I'm sure they get annoyed plenty, but I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah. I guess with the Gamers Vote project you have working on, so is that seems like a long-term play where you want that to become an established advocacy or brand in the gaming space, and obviously esports is only growing and growing and growing and growing, and it doesn't seem to be slowing anytime soon. So is that the kind of goal with that, is to position that as something that is just a mainstay in that industry?
Yeah. So if there's an appetite, I always feel like the world is pretty brutal in its feedback. And in 2018, we just started working with companies that went to their customers, and everyone was so thrilled that in 2020 we sort of came back and started creating, day-long streams. So 12-hour marathon streams where we're talking about voting with everything from musicians to big name streamers to teams, gaming teams, all sort of together with the same message. And Christy St. Martin, who's come in to run it, I think her vision is pretty grand. So again, the world either says yes or no. So I'm certainly hopeful, given the kinds of partners, and they're just an amazing list. You should go to gamers.vote and sort of look at the partner list alone. It just makes you.
I would imagine for potential partners, it's a very appealing partnership because it is something that is viewed as a positive mission. And I think a lot of companies, when they're thinking about, okay, well, how do we grow as this company and how do we try to provide a value or positivity for our community of people, they start to look for advocacies just like that. And they say, well, voting, like, does anyone think voting's bad? Does anyone think trying to have your voice and trying to make contribution to the world, is that a bad thing? And most people generally agree that that is a positive thing. So I think that is ideal for these companies that are looking to maybe set themselves apart or get involved with something else. So something like FaZe you mentioned as well too. And I imagine once you have those flagship teams like a FaZe or TSM or any of those things on there, or even partnership with Twitch specifically, it's much easier to sell that partnership as well down the road and say, well, listen, these guys believe in it. They believe in it. They believe in it. Why don't you come on board too? I just imagine that process becomes a whole lot easier once you already achieve that.
It really is a sort of tipping point. The World Poker Tour was great. So in 2018, we shot commercials with Lynn, and those ran around the show. So starting where and then sort of building from that. And I mean, I'm just kind of amazing. And some of these names, you may know, you may not, but Fandom, Columbia Records, Take Two, the NFL Alumni Association. I mean, the list is kind of mind-blowing to me. Rogue, it goes on and on and on. We just had some great stuff. And what I love about, we're doing this whole initiative that you would just dig, called Rising Stars. So every day in the month of July, we've had on the front page of Twitch, we're going and finding up and coming streamers and sort of giving them an opportunity as a part of the initiative to be a rising star and to have an audience they otherwise wouldn't find, and let that be their sort of entree at the same time that we talk about registering and voting.
Do you give them any support potentially on improving their own production, and is it just more of exposure, like, hey, we'll give you a spot here and then that's...
Oh no, so we have two partners. Checkpoint XP Beasley Media are a sophisticated media group that's all across the country, right? And they're working with a group called Swagged Out Nerds that are in Macon, Georgia. Don't you love the name, right?
I love
Swagged
it.
Out Nerds.
Swagged Out Nerds, I like it.
They're partnered together and are really carrying on this initiative. So the answer is yes, it's produced, and they get a chance to come and do their thing, but also with some help and some guidance and just an audience that sometimes can be hard to get in the early days.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like the hardest part for a lot of new streamers or creators is you sort of need those people to vouch for you in some ways, right? You need someone to say like, hey, this guy's like worth watching, come check him out. Even though you might be doing the same exact thing you were doing, that boost really can help you out. And then a few people find you and they're more inclined to give you a chance, and then they're more inclined to stick around and potentially become main viewers of you too. So I just imagine it's a really great thing to do. I mean, that's kind of something I'm looking to do is how can I feature this new talent in poker versus the people that have been around in our world, the main player, Negreanu, Helmuth. I mean, we know those guys. So I'm looking at, okay, how can I get exposure for the younger generation? And you're able to create that on your own now with the platforms, but there's a lot of people out there that can't create this on their own. So my challenge is, okay, how can I help these people who are great personalities and who are great at the game and who seem like great people or fun people or interesting or whatever? How can I help them get that exposure? Because in poker specifically, it's challenging because if you're not creating content, then you're really not known, and you don't have much relevancy somewhat in the community for people that are fans or people that follow it. You only are kind of known to your friends and maybe the people you play with. And some people are fine with that, but I know a lot of other people out there would love to get some recognition and attention and possibly opportunity for the skill and personality and the love of the game that they have. So it's something I'm sort of thinking about a lot more lately of how can you do that. And I think that's a great example, right, of giving them a platform to get out there and at least show what they got to people.
We should include what you want to do in the thing we're doing. I mean, those guys were certainly, poker is a game. It's part of gamers.vote. And actually, Daniel Negreanu was on board with us to just sort of broadcast the message in 2018 as well. So, I mean, yeah, we should find a way to make that intersect. And I love that you have the desire to give those voices a bigger platform, because it is kind of the era of that.
That's how my podcast started. I felt there was a lot of stories not being told in poker of my friends that I knew that were some of the best players. And I was like, well, no one's talking about PLO. It was also Portland, Omaha. No one spoke about PLO, which is my game. So I was like, well, let me just do this myself, right? Like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I started in my bedroom. I moved back to the country. I was in Indiana. I started in my second bedroom, and I was like, oh, let's see what this like. Let's just see what happens, right? And then I just kept doing it consistently for a bunch of years, and here we are, right? Now we're in Vegas, and we're trying to maybe look at it, take it a little more seriously, and trying to see what the hell could happen out there. But I mean, yeah, I look at like World Poker Tour as a great inspiration for media because it just looks so beautiful, and it all looks so. I'm like, man, who the. Just you look at everything else and you say that's just it's a crazy vision to have. So I'm excited. I'm gonna check out your project or after we get done with the podcast. I kind of want to see what you got going on with this. So I imagine it looks good. The content must look good. Otherwise, you might not be involved because you'd be like, hey, let's not. I see you might put your voice in there and say, let's make this content look a little bit better. Well,
I can tell you that the beautiful thing about these days, they're not like those days. So we were making television content, and that's much more expensive, much more highly produced than what content is that works now. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of gritty and different is the time we live in. That's kind of cool because again, many shows. We had just brought in an investor who was going around, and we took him to agencies and folks to talk about what to do in Hollywood. And the first meeting we took was at CAA. And one of the agents, no longer an agent, Michael Camacho, said to our investors, if you're spending more than $25,000 an episode, you're throwing your money away. We were spending $250,000 an episode. and so luckily the next guy, Richard Lawrence at the next agency that we went to, he said, this is the smartest media play that I've seen in a decade.
Isn't that crazy? Two guys back to back. One guy tells you that you're kind of a fucking idiot. The next guy says this is genius, and you go, "Oh, that's what I thought too."
Well, I mean, I always laugh because people find you, and they will continue to find you when they sort of say, "How do you do?" or "What do you do?" And I just think the answer is, you can't hear the word no. It's sort of if if somebody tells you something and you go, oh yeah, they're probably right, this won't work, then, you're probably not doing the thing you ought to be doing. But every time somebody said this was not going to work, it just didn't even sound right to me. And that could have worked out. It could have not. We're very lucky. Luck's a big part of all.
I'm
just
sure
like
it is,
poker.
right? Yeah, I'm sure it is, right? Maybe it. Yeah, you had to get lucky. 19 years. It's a long time.
Dude, nothing in television does that. Nothing. It's just never happens. It is crazy.
Like the Simpsons. I mean, the best World Series of Poker's been around, but they're around a little bit less and less now these days, and you only really see them for about maybe an hour or two. I think they have the live stream and main event, and then they have like an hour or two episodes for a couple Sundays, and that's really it. But World Poker Tour, everywhere I go, I still see them at the bars. They're always on Fox Sports, and those shows are always being played out there, it seems like.
Well, they've just done an amazing job at distribution. And there had been we were going to talk a little bit about where poker was in 2001. And we wanted to be the World Poker Tour, but, going to the Aviation Club with Bruno Fatoussi and his gang was really our only option for a legitimate poker room that we could stage an event in, because it was a U.S. thing. Poker lived here and almost nowhere else in the world. Well, man, last time I was traveling around and found myself in Budapest, there was a World Poker Tour one table room in the middle of Budapest. And I thought, yeah, that's a different world.
Yeah, well, it seems like with the plays that you've made in terms of partnerships with overseas companies, it's done really well to expand the WPT brand in Asia and in Europe, because, I mean, it sounds like you're sponsoring poker rooms and putting on events over there as well, too. And with the other platforms you have with Club WPT and Learn WPT, those are also great tools to get exposure to the brand. So it kind of seems like it's still only growing internationally, which has to be pretty exciting, because now you're like, this might stick around for 50 years, right? It could be around, it'd be something that's around for a super long time, as long as poker might be around, if you can kind of be domestically here in America and also international in all these different countries and continents.
And if you're lucky and you're smart, and I think the World Poker Tour guys are being super smart. In Mexico, they were doing something like a 20 share on television. Big partner, I think Telemundo was the partner down there, and they were doing monster numbers when they remade the older episodes and put them on television. So it continues to seed and grow and seed and grow, and that's exciting. Yeah. Plus the stuff that's going on. I mean, this pandemic has brought about some things like what's going on with the online championships that are really cool and innovative. It'll be interesting to see how that sort of affects the industry long term.
Yeah, I know, it's some crazy stuff with these tournaments. I mean, there's like both three sites are putting on these major series, and they're competing against each other in every front. I mean, it's like the untalked about thing in poker, which I find super fascinating, because I'm trying to learn more about that part of the world, and I feel like I know the playing side quite well. I'm doing that a long time. I've learned the content side a little bit here, and now I'm trying to learn the more business side and the operator side. And that's big business right there. I mean, those companies are going through millions of dollars a day, and PokerStars is bringing in over $1 billion potentially before they I don't know how exactly. What was it called, right? So if they bring in the $1 billion, but they don't make the $1 billion, right? It's called like gross versus net, right? Is that how it works?
Got me. I don't know.
You're out of that phase these days.
It's so nice that I can't answer that question. That made my day. Thank you.
Let me get a couple questions from the chat. I see a lot of people out there. Eden Rocks, what's up, buddy? Nice to see you as always. Eden Rocks, this guy wants to make poker an opera. He wants to make it an opera with opera music and world wrestling entertainment like entrances for the players. And I say, why not? I don't know. It sounds great. Why not? Could work out there. Shout out to my man Eden. Alex7, what's up, Alex? Eric Peterson, what's up, Eric? You've been commenting a lot here today, buddy. You've been leaving some interesting things. My man Pico Johnson, I saw him earlier. Checkmark Pico. Joel Bradenberg, what's up, guys? If anybody has any questions out there, feel free. You have any shout outs you want to give? I know you already gave a couple shout outs to Adam. I'm sure he's out there with his shirt off, watching, having a good time right now, maybe on a beach, or he's not on a beach.
I'm never,
He's in
I'm never
quarantine,
gonna
so
live down.
maybe he's not. Maybe he's in quarantine. He's still locked down. Maybe he didn't get that haircut yet. So.
Now I'm in serious trouble. I honestly, shout out to all the folks in the early days, and that goes to again, first person who was on board working with us, Robin Motor, who ran production for us for years, Audrey Kana, who was number 3 and was head of marketing and helped us build what is everything from that logo that you still use to other things, and Cindy Fraser, who was the assistant and stayed with us forever. The beautiful thing about the World Poker Tour is that people stay a long time.
Yeah, they really do.
It's still there. There are people who've been there almost since the beginning who are still doing great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have introduced a lot of characters into the poker world. I mean, with like Lynn Gilmartin, she's been one of the most loved people in poker for a long time. Mike Sexton, I mean, he's obviously.
How much do you love Lynn Gilmartin? Have you ever encountered anyone who had any interaction with Lynn Gilmartin that didn't just love her? I want to know any.
I don't think so. I've never heard a bad thing about her.
And it's fun to watch Tony Dunt step in, to the impossible to fill shoes and be just awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tony just took down an event online, World Series Poker event here in Nevada, I believe. So congratulations to Tony. He's been doing well there. Mr. M. If he had to put together a Legends final table of living players, who would it be? That's a great question, buddy. Doyle Brunson. Would we put Doyle in this mix? I mean,
I would do something that would be completely different. Okay, so I'm going to answer the question by not getting myself in any hot water. I would love to see a rematch of the first World Poker Tour final table.
That's what you'd bring back, huh?
I'd just be interested to see it play over, right? Run it twice.
Can we do it? Can we put it together?
Run it twice.
What could make that happen? Can we make that happen ever?
Well, the brilliant thing is I have absolutely no power now. So
I hope that stays. I hope like the conversation with me doesn't say, maybe I'm a little curious about this now, because it seems like you're in a very great spot there. You're a very happy spot. I like this room you got going on here, right? I'm looking for my own little sanctuary, away from the, the just peace, right? Peace at home. You got the basketball hoop in there, the pinball machine, the wrestling mat. Is that a jiu-jitsu floor or is that a hardwood floor?
It's hardwood.
Okay, hardwood floor. Okay, you got the hardwood floor. You got the book. Is that a treadmill back there too? What the hell?
That's treadmill too. Okay. It's all here, man. Come on, come join, come hang out. I mean, once COVID ends, you just got to come play.
New Mexico, huh? What is outside that window? Is that a nice view too, or is it what's going on with that window?
Oh yeah, it's even raining a little bit, I think. So
window here.
Let's see what we got.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so I mean, it's desert, dude. Hey, little rain.
Like yeah, a lot. It's desert. You're right.
got all that Adobe thing. So
I can see. What is that? Looks like a house from the 1800s next to you or something like that.
Yeah. So it's all Adobe. And see, these are all the things that I do actually have to do.
That's it. Just seven white sheets filled top to bottom.
If it doesn't go on the wall, it doesn't get done. You are a delight. This is what I need to do.
It's 7 white sheets of paper filled top to bottom. But I'm relaxing and I'm chilling these days. It's not too aggressive.
Yeah, I love it. Oh man, you're a delight. Thank you for letting me come on and talk ad nauseum.
I appreciate it. I mean, listen, like I said, I was going through the history, right? Because I'm working on some content, history WPT, and I go, who the hell is this guy? Like, how did he go? Because I'm just like, I put myself back in that time. I go, in the poker world then, it was so different. Just how did this guy come up with this idea? It just doesn't make it, because, I don't know, I'm looking, it's kind of inspiring to me in a lot of ways too. So, I appreciate kind of the insight, appreciate the words that you're kind of giving too. And one of my last questions I'll have is what I normally ask. I normally ask for one piece of poker advice. We're not going to ask you for one more piece of poker advice. Let's ask you for a piece of life advice you might give to the people out there, some of the younger and or older generation out there that might be listening.
It's very easy for me. I, I mean, that should be a hard question, but I think the hardest thing that I find just about everybody I encounter they struggle with is perspective, and perspective may be something we never have. In other words, I feel like we're born as the frog in the water, and the water is already warm. And so, in order to sort of get a chance to not be freaked out by today, and at the same time be able to maybe expand where we are and what we can do and how we can contribute, we struggle for that thing called perspective. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that helps me is sort of to go big, 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 which is to understand that the universe we think is, about 14 billion years old. And 200,000 years ago, sapiens, we think, developed, right? Mm-hmm. So we became a species. And we've had society for maybe 7 to 8 to 12,000 years. That's all. So sort of our moment is so slight that if we can take a minute to maybe expand our mind into what I would like to think is the infinite, the stuff that is just the here and the now, if you could touch this moment and participate with the people around you, you've had a profound impact on you and the world. And that's what I wish we could all do more.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. I mean, I could host a consciousness podcast related to spiritualism too, but I host a poker show. So I love this kind of stuff. I'm always into. I've been researching this a lot, just the idea of consciousness and how our subconscious works, how our conscious mind works, and evolution, and sort of like the truth behind who we are as human beings and where we come from. And obviously there's all sorts of theories up there, and kind of just studying history to understand what other people maybe thought and kind of come to my own conclusions. So that's certainly kind of perspective I think is important to remember, especially for me. It's easy to get wrapped up in your work or in what your goals or in what your vision is, and sometimes taking a step back and trying to reframe the issue or reframe what you perceive to be a problem or issue has been really helpful for me personally. So
that's awesome. And my poker advice is don't fall in love with your cards.
Great advice. I like it. Guys, let's wrap it up here. If you've tuned in, I appreciate it. If you tune in live, if you're still watching now, you're awesome and you're very hardcore. So smash that like button, and thank you very much on YouTube. Be back with a new podcast tomorrow afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern time. My buddy All in Pav, party poker streamer. He's been streaming the WPT events. He's one of the up-and-coming tournament players in the entire world. It's my guy. Next week content as well, too. Steve, you're not really active on social. I can't have them send you anywhere. So if they want to find you, they can go to
gamers.vote. #gamersvote.
Exactly. That's where they can find you right now. I'm going to be checking it out after we're done here. And that's it. So we got, guys. Take care. Peace out. Adios,
See you,
everybody.
man.